Thank you very much indeed. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me to this event. We were asked to come up with a thought. There's my thought for the morning. You can live in a dustbin, but as long as you've got an iPod, you're okay. We will come back to that. We were reminded this morning that this is a convention about intergenerations, so I want to look at the next generation, the generation of consumer kids, and to ask the question as to whether children are lost in an excess of consumer goods. So, how many of you have actually got children? Whoa, lots. And those of you who don't have children, have any of you ever actually been a child? At any point in your life. Fantastic. So we have 100% of people in the audience who can actually relate to this topic. So that's a really good start. So the next question then really, if we're talking about consumer kids, is how many shopping days are left till Christmas? What are you doing with your, close? 95. You've got 95 days left to get all of these things that clearly every child has to have in their bedroom by the 25th of December at 6:05, roughly, in the morning. Now, luckily for you, there's help at hand, because the retailers, for many, many months already, Bart Schmidt, for example, will have drawn up a list of what's going to be the top-selling toys for Christmas 2012. How do they know this? How do they know what we're going to do in the next 95 days? Have they got a crystal ball? No, but they do have a marketing budget. And that's how they can find out what we're going to spend our money on, because they will tell us. Now, has anyone got any idea what might be on this list? I things, yes. Already this morning there's been lots of I things talked about, and there will definitely be I things. Any other ideas? Okay, I things. We're going to do I things. It kind of depends how much money you've got. If you've got a relatively small budget, you can get lots of Spider-Man things. In fact, you can get lots and lots and lots of Spider-Man things. You can get Spider-Man duvets, you can get Spider-Man backpacks, you can get Spider-Man watches, you can get Spider-Man cars, and importantly, you can get Spider-Man maths and counting books, because, as we all know, Spider-Man is a superhero in that. In fact, when I looked on Amazon, you can get 46,244 different kinds of Spider-Man things. That smacks of excess to me. I don't know about you. But it's not really surprising, because 2/3 of all toys are now licensed properties of films, movies, and television shows. And probably the most successful of this ever was High School Musical. Remember High School Musical? High School Musical cost a mere $4.2 million to make, but Disney managed to make over 100 times that in the merchandising deals that they made. In fact, it was so successful that investment analysts on Wall Street and elsewhere were encouraging their clients to invest in Disney stock. Because as one analyst said, the wonderful thing about High School Musical is the many, many ways that you can monetize that hit over and over again. And that's what's going to happen with Spider-Man this Christmas. Spider-Man is going to be monetized over and over again. Do you know who owns Spider-Man, incidentally? He used to be owned by Marvel Comics, that's where he came from. Sony now own the film rights to Spider-Man, but guess who Sony have just sold the merchandising rights to? Disney, absolutely. So Disney now own the merchandising rights, and just watch those sales figures soar. So I defy you to not to buy a Spider-Man product this Christmas. If you've got a little bit more money, you can buy something else. And I know this is something that Thies, my host, is going to be very keen on. It's the Furby. Now, do you remember the Furby from your youth? How many of you had Furbies? Oh yes, serious amounts of Furbies going on. Furbies are back. For those of you that haven't had a Furby is an emotion pet. So it's a little pet that you can feed and love and look after and cherish and all the things you do with a real friend, except you don't normally spend 80 euros on a real friend, but hey. The new Furby is going to be different, though. The new Furby will be compatible with apps. So you can download an app and you can feed your Furby. You can Bluetooth him food. And apparently, if he doesn't like the food, he will Bluetooth it back at you. Thankfully, in a virtual way, he will Bluetooth it back with you. Now, this is all okay, except that these apps are only at the moment compatible with iThings. So once you have bought your 80 euro Furby, you better reload your wallet and wander down to the Apple store so that you can buy an iThing so that your child can actually talk to its Furby. And while you're at the Apple store, you can pick up something that's also on the top 10 list if you've got about 300 euros, and that, of course, is the iPad, especially made for children here, as you can see. Very, very important. They're going to be up there. You might also, if you're a kind of a responsible parent, you might go for one of these tablets, and tablets are going to be some of the best-selling toys. So you can buy the VTech InnoPad, or you can buy the Leapfrog LeapPad, and of course these are educational. And you buy these because they're educational and you're being good to your child. Of course, they're actually full of Disney games, but you feel that they're being educational, so you're being, great, I'm a good parent. But the very bad news for you is you may have bought one of these last year, and therefore you're a good parent, but unfortunately, this year, we've got the InnoPad 2, and we've got the LeapPad 2. So you're no longer a good parent, are you? Because you have failed to buy your child the next best thing that's on the market. Now, as my introducer was saying, I've done some work with UNICEF, and one of the things we did, we asked children about this idea of new and the latest version. And we interviewed one girl in London, and she said, yeah, I want a new iPod. I want one that's got more memory on it, you see. And she said, I haven't used even half of the memory I've got, but I want a new one because I want more. Completely illogical. And it was a refrain we kept seeing amongst children. I don't know why, but I just want the next thing. I don't know why, but I just want the next thing. Well, I think the marketers know exactly why they want the next thing. And that's the power of advertising. Now, if you take a brand like Apple, which has been mentioned a million times this morning already, how much do you think Apple spend on advertising in 1 year? Any guesses? 100 million? Any advance on 100 million? 0? Ah, no. 500 million? Do we hear more? Do we hear more? $1 billion? Almost. $933 million they spend on advertising in 1 year. That was in 2011, and that was up 35% on the year before. Now, how long do you think it would take the average Dutch family to earn what Apple spends just on advertising in just 1 year? 1,000 years? Any advance on 1,000 years? 36,247 years, which gives you a kind of an idea of the power of advertising. So what do Apple get for their 1 billion that they're spending on advertising? Well, what they get is what psychologists call a thing called false consensus, which means that if you see something advertised absolutely everywhere, which is where the Apple dollars go, you kind of think that everybody's got one. Tomorrow, what comes out tomorrow? The iPhone 5. Exactly. The iPhone 5 comes out. I don't know if any of you are going to be in line for the iPhone 5. But if you see the advertising everywhere, which we do, you kind of feel that everyone's got one. And when you kind of feel that everyone's got one, you kind of feel that you're missing out. And according to my 17-year-old daughter, this has become a defined psychological phenomenon, and it's called FOMO. FOMO, F-O-M-O, fear of missing out. And so you talk to, oh, she's a real FOMO, you know. Yeah, she's got FOMO really bad. This fear of missing out. And that's an awful thing if you're a teenager, this fear that somehow everybody's got stuff that you don't have. And the advertising dollars fuel that enormously. I've come across someone who talks about this very, very eloquently. Who's this? What music do you listen to here in the Netherlands? Who's this? Lily Allen, thank you. Yes, Lily Allen. If you listen to Lily Allen's lyrics, I think they perfectly epitomize the current generation. She says this here, I am a weapon of massive consumption. It's not my fault, it's how I'm programmed to function. And she goes on to say, I don't know what's right and what's real anymore. And what's going to happen to the next generation who don't know what's right and what's real anymore? That's one question I'd like to leave with you. We've talked a lot about technology and the power of advertising and technology. But it's not just technology that has an impact on young people, and particularly teenagers. The other big area where brands are powerful is fashion. So I'm going to flash up a couple of adverts and see if you can tell me what the brand is. G-Star? No? Hollister, thank you very much. Yep. Hollister, and this one. Anyone for this one? It's owned by the same company as Hollister. Abercrombie and Fitch, thank you very much. This is the Abercrombie and Fitch. And of course, what they're selling is not fashion at all, is it? They're selling a lifestyle. And in fact, if you go on the Abercrombie Kids site, you will find that you can buy 9 pre-made lifestyles. So you don't even have to think it up, you just buy it. So you can buy this lifestyle, or that lifestyle, or the other lifestyle, and you've got 9 to choose from. But how do these fashion brands work for teenagers? Well, let's have a little look at what some teenagers have said. This was one group of 14-year-olds who were talking, and they said this. If you've got a whole gang of people wearing Lacoste, then you don't want to rock up wearing Reebok. So what's happening here is that it's not about the shoes or the style, or certainly not the comfort of the shoe. That's completely irrelevant. It's about symbolism. And what's being symbolized here is belonging. It's all about belonging. If you are wearing Lacoste, you belong. If you wear Reebok, you don't belong. And that's what a lot of branding is about. It's about whether or not you belong. And it's a universal human need. And what's wrong with that? We all need to belong. We all need to be part of something. And my research around the world has shown that that certainly is a human need amongst teenage girls. So when we went to Sweden, we found a group of girls who were part of this thing called the Chloe Gang. And at first I thought Chloe was some kind of uber cool teenager who had everything. But no, they were actually talking about the Chloe brand. And here's what some of the people who didn't belong to the Chloe gang had to say about the Chloe gang. They said this, they said, the Chloe gang likes expensive things. They think they're the best, and they say, I'm better than you, I have expensive things. And interestingly, they have real Uggs. All right? None of your fake stuff for the Chloe girls. They have real Uggs. So here you can see that this idea of belonging still applies. You know, you belong to the Chloe gang or you don't belong to the Chloe gang. But there's something else going on in here. There's an undercurrent going on in here. It's not just about belonging or not belonging, about forging out your identity. It's about a social hierarchy. And the Chloe gang certainly think that they are better than other people. And from this, why do the Chloe gang think they are better? What have they got that other people haven't got? Expensive, exactly. The Chloe gang have got money. And what makes them better is the fact that they've got money. Now, where has that come from? That the best you can be as a teenager is to have money. If we look back at Abercrombie again, Abercrombie actually have a sub-brand called Privileged Prep. Right? So that is actually a sub-brand. And this isn't like Abercrombie for adults. This is Abercrombie Kids, Privileged Prep. So being cool now equals being rich. It's not just about symbolism, it's about being rich. And actually, over the last sort of 10 years of research, this is a theme that has come up again and again amongst teenagers in Western Europe. So if we go back to the conversation about the Reebok and the Lacoste, these teenagers went on to say, yeah, like if you come in plain white trainers, so if you've got neither Lacoste nor Reebok, nor presumably Nike or Adidas or anything else, then you're going to get bullied. You're going to get bullied for not having the right brand. And why are you going to get bullied? You're going to get bullied because people think you're poor. And this has been shown again and again in research. This was some other research done just last year by the Children's Commissioner in England. And a group of teenagers asked their fellows, why it was that they felt they had to buy expensive things. And they said this: because everyone else seems to have them, remember FOMO, and none of us want to look poor. And they said, yeah, anything to prove that we've got money. So branding is all about, playing on the fear of missing out and also the fear of poverty. Now, this is in the UK. Now, why are people fearful of poverty in the UK? It's something a little bit strange. How many children do you think live in poverty in the UK? 30%? Well, actually, yes, shockingly. There are 1.6 million children in the UK living in severe poverty, which means they don't have enough to eat and they don't have warm clothes to wear. The Save the Children Fund, their latest campaign is called It Shouldn't Happen Here, and they're fundraising not for children in Africa, not for children in India, they're fundraising for children in the UK, because there are children in the UK that don't have enough to eat. Work by the Child Poverty Action Group has shown that almost 30% of children live in relative poverty. That's 3.8 million children. Now, by relative poverty, what we mean is children living in families whose income is less than 50% of what the average is. And this idea of relative poverty is really important. And I think it's something that brands fuel and exacerbate and make worse. Because if you're living in relative poverty, all of the time you're looking at the people who've got more than you, and the people who've got more are living in fear of the people that have got less. I think someone this morning said that abundance should be about sharing. And when you look at this, you can see it's not about sharing at all. I don't know if any of you have read Richard Layard's book, Happiness, when he looks at social comparison theory and how incredibly psychologically damaging it is when you're constantly socially comparing yourself with other people. Or The Spirit Level, the book by Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett, and they talk about how gross domestic product does not equate to gross domestic happiness. And I think the actress earlier on was saying that once you've got 57,000 euros, you don't get any happier. That's the plateau. And that seems to have been shown again and again and again. Having more money doesn't make you more happy. What does seem to lead to more contented populations is an equal distribution of the wealth that we do have. And both of those books look at how it's the equal distribution that makes us happier. Now, if we look at the UK again, the poorest tenth of our population has got poorer over the last 10 years, while the richest part of our population has got richer and richer. And so we've got a situation where you've got lots and lots of social comparison going on, and that's something that brands, I think, can fuel, because social comparison encourages these comparisons between those that have and those that don't have. Now, the way in which brands work with inequality to make children feel unhappy is very complex, but there's been quite a lot of research done over the last few years to try and disentangle that. And some of it's been done here, well, not here, but in Amsterdam at the School of Communications Research. And it seems to work a little bit like this. Children who don't have a lot of money spend a lot of time in front of the TV set because they can't afford to do some of the things that more privileged children have got. And more television, even in the Netherlands, is becoming commercialized. So if you don't have much money, you are being more bombarded with adverts than if you do have money. Those children who watch a lot of TV become more materialistic, and they think that material things are going to make them happy. Now, people who are disenfranchised or unhappy or have low self-esteem are also likely to be more materialistic than other people because they believe the promise of the things that's being offered. So if you're at the bottom of the social heap, it's like a double whammy. You're exposed to more advertising, and at the same time, the promise of material goods becomes much more intense. Now, what happens in the future? What happens when these people young people who've espoused materialist values go on to become materialist adults? Well, practically all of the research that's been done on materialism in adults shows that they're not going to be very happy in the future. There is not a correlation between wanting more stuff and being happy. In fact, it's quite the reverse. So what does that mean for the well-being of our children in a consumer society? I want to end by talking about a piece of research that was done by UNICEF in 2007, where they took 6 different measures of child well-being, and they compared rich countries across the world on these measures. Now, maybe no surprise after what I've said that the UK came bottom, which was not great for us, and the government was pretty upset about it. They tried to disprove the statistics first, obviously. That would be the best thing to do. We were closely followed by the United States, who came in 20th place after 21st. Who do you think was top of the list? Almost Sweden. Norway? The Netherlands! So, woo! So, you guys have got the happiest children in the world. On average, the Netherlands had the happiest children, and importantly, Netherlands was top on subjective well-being. So that was when children were asked, do you feel happy? And Dutch children went, yes, we're really, really happy. So maybe they just had chocolate sprinkles on their bread that morning, I don't know. But they were the happiest. Now, someone immediately said Sweden, and yes, Sweden was second, and Sweden was actually first in 3 of the 6 measures. And the reason why Sweden didn't beat you, I guess, was because there's a measure on family and relationships. The divorce rate in Sweden is very, very high, and the children they scored actually quite badly on that. I think they came 15th out of 20th, which meant that it popped you up into first place. Now, why are your children so happy? What are you doing right? I've just done some other research from UNICEF, where we didn't come to the Netherlands, sadly, but we did go to Sweden. And one thing we did find was, of course, Sweden is an incredibly egalitarian country. Everything is very equal. Even within the family, the kids were doing the washing up and being equal. It was imbued with equality. Now, according to the UNICEF study, the Netherlands does pretty well on equality. You're kind of about number 10, I think. So, I mean, it's a much more egalitarian country, certainly, than the UK or the USA. So that may have something to do with it. The other thing, of course, is that in Sweden, advertising to children has been banned since the 1990s. And whereas it's not possible to, or even desirable, to completely isolate children from advertising, they see much less advertising. And if you think about the Netherlands, commercial television with advertising came in very much later than it did in other parts of Europe. So maybe, just maybe, the lack of commercialism in your society for children relative to other places, combined with egalitarianism, is something that makes your children incredibly happy. So there's a little challenge for you as the next generation. How are you going to balance a world where children do have an excess of consumer goods, and a world where, certainly in some economies, things are getting very out of kilter, to make sure that your children carry on being the happiest children in the world? And very finally, I just wanted to say the kind of society I currently live in, which is a society where a 14-year-old boy said to me, it doesn't matter if you live in a dustbin, but as long as you've got an iPod, you're accepted. Doesn't seem to me the kind of culture for bringing up happy children. Thank you very much.